Welcome to this event by EdTech Society. I am Shridhar, the president of the society. The goal of this society is to bring together people in meaningful integration of technology in education. For today's session, we have an Infocus interview of Dr. Shridhar Shukla by Dr. Sugat Dabolkar. Let me introduce them. Dr. Shridhar Shukla is an IITB alumnus and he did his PhD from NCSU. He was a faculty in the US for many years before returning back to India and joining Persistent in Pune. Subsequently, he started Great Software Lab, and currently he is the co-founder and chairman of KPOINT Technologies. Education is an area of lifelong interest for him, in which he has participated in multiple roles, as an investor, as an advisor, and as a donor. Lately, his focus is on school education with an emphasis on upskilling of teachers. He works with several organizations such as Gyanprakash Foundation, RealLives Foundation, Myelin, Gurujiworld, IISER Pune, MKCL, and he is the founding donor for IIT Bombay's Trust Lab. So, welcome Sridhar to this event.
Thank you, Shridhar. Great to be here.
Okay. Let me also now introduce the interviewer. The interviewer is Dr. Sugat Dabolkar. He's an assistant research professor at Tufts University in the United States. He's a learning sciences researcher working on designing curricular materials and technology tools in collaboration with school teachers and college professors. He has developed several computational models and model-based curricular units for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics classrooms that are being used in India and in the US. Welcome, Sugat.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I will now hand over the session to you, and please take it from here.
Yes, thank you. And so I'm also a member of program committee of EdTech Society, and we are starting this new segment, Infocus interviews. And we couldn't have hoped for a better guest for our first episode in this segment, Dr. Shridhar Shukla. So we are delighted to have you here, Dr. Shridhar Shukla. Is it okay if I call you Shridhar?
Yes, please. I would insist on that. Thank you very much.
Yes, Sridhar, it's my honor to interview you, and my first set of questions are related to your career trajectory and how you see technology as a driver for change, and specifically in the context of education. So you made many interesting switches in your career, starting from academia to creating successful companies to building platforms and supporting them grow that generated new ideas, created innovative products. And a central theme I see in your trajectory is technology for change. Is that correct? Um,
Yes, it is. Mostly correct.
okay.
I would add a little perspective on it. As it always happens, we are able to give these pithy labels only as hindsight.
Yes.
So at the time you're doing something, you're doing it to solve a problem,
Mm-hmm.
basically to make something, as any entrepreneur would say, faster, cheaper, or better. So, and then you realize that, it either caused a change or not, but the objective
Mm-hmm.
is always to change it in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And lately, as you said, I'm trying to address or learn about the problem of up-leveling teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, what really we are tackling is use technology to increase reach and engagement, both of which are essential for scale. So that is basically what I would add, but you are right.
Great, great. So scaling is definitely an important aspect, and technology can support that in multiple ways. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, what got you interested to work in the field of educational technology?
So, by profession, it was a technology related profession that I was engaged in. And it was, I would say, luck by chance that we stumbled upon educational technologies. My early engagement was related to security in software in the digital world, as we would call it today. There were many unsolved problems. Before that, it was basically communication over the internet protocols. So when we thought of building something, we were always looking for an area in which to apply it. And we were building video technology, very early on. And
Yes.
this was back in 2011 or 2010 timeframe. And so education appeared to be a very nice area to apply the video technology in. And so, that became an area in which we learned a few things. And it sparked an interest. Of course, there are some childhood experiences that also sparked the interest. But that's how I came to work in this area.
So I'm curious to know about your. You said something about your childhood memory, childhood experiences that got you interested, and could you say
Yes.
more about those?
Yeah, so, my earliest experience related to the impact teachers have in one's life was when I was in seventh grade, moved from a small town to a big town, changing from a, run-of-the-mill school to a shiny new school with a very strong reputation. And until then, it was, the status of a very average student. My father had got me admitted to this, wonderful school called Balmohan Vidya Mandir in Dadar Shivaji Park. And from being the bottom half of the class student, I was gaining new experiences every day in this, very reputed and established school. I remember one experience in which my father had come to the school to find out how I was doing. And he was talking to my class teacher. Her name, I recall, is Derebai. And I wasn't even part of the conversation. I was just standing by my father's side. But I heard Derebai tell my father, and I'll use the language that she used, which is Marathi. तुमचा मुलगा हुशार आहे, छान अभ्यास करतो. And these words fell on my ears. And they were, the fact that I remember them to this date means how impactful they were on my child, the mind of the child that I was. And I remember that sparking an interest in me to just do well for her. I was not trying to do anything but to please Derebai. And lo and behold, that year in that highly competitive, reputed school in a big town like Mumbai, and I'd come from Nagpur, I stood first among all of the divisions.
Wow.
And that was my personal experience of the impact a teacher has in transferring the agency of learning to the child. And so I always thought that, at some point when I can afford it or I have the time, I would work on doing something for teachers.
That's fantastic. So from starting at the bottom half of the school to standing first at a prestigious school in Mumbai to then going to IITB and then amazing career in academics, in computer engineering, and then the COO of Persistence, and so your career trajectory is extremely fascinating. And what I hear you say is this something that created that spark was a teacher, and I'm curious to know how do you see technology can create such opportunities for teacher-student interactions where these sparks can be generated by multiple teachers for multiple students in different contexts.
Yes. So, one of the things that I'm coming to uh, understand better and better is we have to recognize that educational technology is different from technology, right? A lot of the times when we see substantial changes in the way education takes place, we see that some piece of technology that has been very, very impactful in our daily lives starts to get applied to education. So it's really technology applied in the field of education is what we are witnessing almost all the time. I mean, I would like to bring out the example of YouTube, which we are also familiar with, which was basically to enable people to broadcast themselves, right? That was the initial tagline, broadcast yourself. Maybe it still is for YouTube. And their goal in life was never, and even today, it is probably not to be an educational tool. It is to be the TV for everyone, right? Make money through advertisements. But we know that it has really literally revolutionized education and learning for the whole world. Now compare this technology of publishing video for the world with another piece of technology which is free called the learning management system,
Yes.
LMS. Now, to what extent do we find, how would we compare the impact of an LMS with the impact YouTube has had? One was built for as an educational technology, and the other was built as just technology which found applications in YouTube, in education. So I think it is very important for us to understand this difference because to be able to have impact in education, we really have to understand the human and social aspects of education.
Yes.
So I would say that is a very important point to consider when we think about educational technologies as driver of change. And I would also like to relay this particular observation that somebody else made for me. We've seen, let me say, 8.01 waves of technology, let's say, and I'll explain why 8.01. So we had printing technology revolutionized education. Then came radio, then came TV, then came computers, then came personal computers, then came the internet, then came the mobile internet, then came videos. And now we are in the very early days of artificial intelligence. That's why the 0.01, we are in very early days of AI. But the other 8 have come and really spread throughout our lives. We all can judge to what extent they revolutionized education and how many of them came out as educational technologies.
Yes.
Right? So,
Yes, absolutely. And so you said something very important, which is social and human aspects of education. And so, how do you see technology playing a role in creating better uh, relationships between teachers and students, and how can these are seemingly unrelated things, but I think they are extremely related. So can you talk a little bit about that?
yeah. So, you, you're saying if I can say something about technology impacting the relationship between teachers and students. Right. So, if we think for a minute, and there are lots of papers and books and talks about what makes a good teacher, what is a good classroom, how technology can leverage it, etc., etc. But if we think about, since you used the word called relationship, let's think about what a teacher is to a student and what a student is to a teacher. Right? If we look at it from the point of view of the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
In my view, the most important responsibility the teacher carries is to transfer the responsibility to learn to the student. I mean,
Yes.
those are heavy words, right?
Yes. Yes.
But in simpler words, what I would say is that how does the teacher generate curiosity?
Mm-hmm.
And how does the teacher motivate the student to satisfy his
Mm-hmm.
or her curiosity? And do both of these things by creating the right environment. Now, these
Mm-hmm.
three are very difficult challenges, but that's the responsibility. And, to be able to add some perspective about the
Mm-hmm.
modern day classroom,
Mm-hmm.
we recently conducted a survey
Mm-hmm.
for teachers. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And what was the number one thing that they wanted? Now, surveys go only so far as getting the input, because the way you phrase the question can draw the right answer. But this was followed up with interactions with teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Their primary goal was to be able to go into a classroom feeling confident
Mm-hmm.
and coming out of the classroom feeling great for having given the students some joy.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole relationship is reflected in that.
Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. I think this is extremely important that these tools transform students in ways that they see their role in learning, and so teacher
Yes.
is a facilitator to make that transformation. So teacher is not supposed to be giving the knowledge, but knowledge is supposed uh, to be generated by students in the process of learning, and
Yes.
that's a wonderful insight. I mean, in fact, one of the theories of learning that I have studied by Samuel Papert at MIT Media Lab, constructionism. It's this art of learning. We talk about art of teaching. We don't talk much about art of learning. And art of teaching is pedagogy. We don't even have a word for art of learning. But the point that you're making is extremely important. That this
Yes.
developing this art of learning, the getting this responsibility that I want to learn and then I want to use these tools. So something that changed you in your seventh, eighth standard, that you wanted to do better and you wanted to take charge of what you want to learn, how you want to learn, how you want to
Yes.
shape your trajectory. And you want
Yes.
to see something like that happen. That's fantastic. So my next question is about your role, your various roles as advisor, investor, donor with several
Hmm.
organizations such as Gyanprakash
Yes.
Foundation, Myelin,
Yes.
Gurujiworld, iRise at IISER, etc. And they are doing phenomenal work related to educational technology. For example, Myelin is providing platform to help schools make data-driven decisions to strengthen governance and achieve learning effectiveness. So these are various different models that are working with teachers, schools, educational systems at various different levels. So I would like to know how do you see these various organizational models that you have worked with, like government initiated MKCL or
Yes.
university-based model like iRise that would help transform the education landscape of India through educational technology.
Yeah. So, first of all, this is a very complex problem, right? In some sense, if a particular society is able to provide good education,
Mm-hmm.
then one could say that the society is functioning well in all
Mm-hmm.
other aspects of societal behavior.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very fundamental aspect of any society's function. And we see that there are countless NGOs, there are countless educational institutions. The problem is of importance to many industrialists and famous people.
Mm-hmm.
There is lots of money being put into it. There are technology researchers, psychology researchers, there are basically lots of effort being expended to make sure that we are able to educate our children and youth well. And yet we see that the problem is not getting solved to the satisfaction of anyone. I mean, leave aside the individual anecdotal experiences, such as the one I related in my personal experience. And there are certainly experiences like that in every individual's experience. But at the level of the system, are we solving the problem correctly? Right? Why do we feel the need to transform the educational landscape? Right? I mean, when we use the word transform, it means there is something drastically wrong with it. Right? And there is a need to transform. So, where is this coming from? And why would we say that there is a need to do that? And I try to think of major buckets about why so much effort is going into solving a problem and yet it is not getting solved. So without passing any judgment or without being critical to anything, my analysis is that the reason for things not working the way individual groups of individuals involved find it broken. Say, in some cases, the students find it broken. In some cases, the administrators find it broken. In other cases, the teachers are unhappy. In some cases, the parent is unhappy or the employer is unhappy. And there are several cases where there is happiness too. But by and large, broadly looking at the system, the reason could be that there is a short-term approach. Whichever demographic in the whole system that we look at, there may be a short-term approach. There may be vested interests, or there may be too much diversity for us to find appropriate solutions. Diversity is really a classic challenge to address in India. So I would say this is the reason why, while I'm working with many different types of organizations, I'm coming to understand different facets of the overall challenge.
Yes. So,
And it remains unsolved.
is there any particular example of these organizational models that you want to showcase that is helping teachers in a ways to connect better with students and make their learning student centric, increase interest in learning for students?
Yeah, so if we talk about what is working, and let's take one entity at a time. So let's first identify the entities. There is a government, then there is the private sector, then there is the community of teachers, there are students, and there are parents. Right? We all know that Indians are highly valued all over the world for the quality of education that they bring to the table.
Yes.
Right? And so surely a lot of good things are going on. So we know, the nationally important institutes are run by the government, and they produce a great output. There are Jilla Parishad schools which do produce excellent output. May not be to the percentage that the government wants, or may not be at the cost that they would like to bear. At the same time, we do find the negative examples too in this. What is important for us to figure out is, overall, where is the trend going? Okay. And what I find is that overall, we are becoming more and more student-centric, but without keeping the teacher in the loop. Okay. Now, in any educational system, I find that it is, and we saw earlier the impact the teacher has, and this applies as much at the school level as it does at the college level, as it does at your working professional level, where you get a great manager and you have a great career after that. So, the overall efforts of the system, in my view, are falling short in focusing on and up leveling this point of leverage, and it's trying to go direct. And to give an example, let's take this, unicorn. I don't know if it still is a unicorn, EdTech company in India. Name starts with B. Right? You look at its offerings, and they, in my view, undermine the teacher. Right? Now, if you become so student-centric that you take out the support system of the student, then you're not going to get the right outcome. You take college entrance exam coaching, it's the same impact, right?
Yes. Yes.
You take professional coaching or continuous on-the-job training, and we rave on and on about the MOOCs and pay by the topic content available on the net. But in the end, it's that manager who works with the employee that really teaches him,
Yes.
the nuances of how to get the skill going properly. So what I'm saying is, in the interest of becoming student-centric, we may have undermined the biggest point of leverage that we have. And so that is one of the things to be addressed by whatever it is that we do. That's an
Yes.
example I have.
No, you bring up a very important point of teachers upscaling or teacher. I don't like to use the word teacher training or teachers professional development, right? So teachers are partners in this process, and we are working
Yes.
together to to incorporate these educational technology innovations in classrooms that are beneficial for teachers and students. And and I will name these companies. On one hand, so there is this boom of Byju's and Unacademy and White Hat Junior, which are largely profit oriented. On the other hand, you said you are also interested in social causes, and so education has a huge role to play at grassroots, right? And technology has potential to democratize good quality education through professional development of teachers. So how do you see your current work with school teachers helping in providing good quality education to large number of students? You talked about scale, right? So how
Yes.
can that happen?
Yes. So let's first of all talk about the unit here, okay, and then talk about the scale. So the unit is a teacher and the teacher's classroom. So for whatever the reason, we know that the main outcome that the parents of the students are looking for is the student gets good marks, right? Somehow that's the metric. Now, why that metric has come about is a point of debate that we can leave for another occasion. And as a result of that, what happens is the time in the classroom of the student, and this applies even at degree education level, may not be that much at the second degree education level, but certainly at the first degree education, is the focus is on what gets directly valued by the society, which are basically marks and your percentages and scores. Now, what we are talking about is, how do we scale high quality education by giving emphasis to the teacher? So first of all, I think there is a fundamental requirement for the system to say that getting good marks is not the teacher's responsibility. It is the child's responsibility. let's first,
Yes.
get that right.
Mm-hmm.
But the teachers and the schools are held responsible for getting the
Mm-hmm.
child good marks.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something to be corrected. And how is that going to get corrected? You
Mm-hmm.
can't tell parents that, don't look for this. Not
Mm-hmm.
possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's most important for us to educate the primary point of leverage, which is the teacher or the professor, to say that,
Mm-hmm.
you just do your basic job,
Mm-hmm.
which is what we spoke about earlier, is make sure the agency is transferred. Now,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot be that high level, right?
Yes.
You have to do something on the ground in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what will you do?
Yes.
So, as you would say, we always like those teachers and those professors
Mm-hmm.
who gave us quote unquote the fundas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, basically, what did that mean?
Mm-hmm.
That meant that they gave us the basics,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then left us to be on our own.
Yes.
If you talk about at the school level,
Mm-hmm.
these are teachers who would basically make sure that you grab the essence of what you're
Mm-hmm.
doing.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't make you robots by giving you lots of practice, and we'll speak a little bit about practice later on.
Mm-hmm.
But they also knew what kind of learning came before what the next stage of learning was. So,
Mm-hmm.
if for example, you want to multiply two numbers and they are, uh, you know, multiple digit numbers, you
Mm-hmm.
need to learn how to multiply two single digit numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they would make sure that you get the prerequisite well,
Mm-hmm.
and then somehow step you into the more complex item
Mm-hmm.
and not rush you into doing too much practice. So
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the big things to be done here is to make sure that this teaching of the pandas is really taught to the teachers and they are made confident enough to resist all other pressures.
Mm-hmm.
And they are actually coached and, I'll use the word trained
Mm-hmm.
uh, or supported to be able to
Mm-hmm.
just do that in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Great. So we are halfway through the interview, and I also want to tell the audience that please ask your questions, and you can post your questions in YouTube comments section, and we will pick those up as you post them, and we will have some time reserved towards the end if there is a question that is not really related to what we are talking about. But this point is about teachers and role of teachers and what is it that we are doing for teachers to transfer this agency to students. And I would like to hear a concrete example from you, Sridhar, that in your work where you see what kind of tools or what kind of systems, what kind of programs are helping this happen.
So this is work in progress. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
we all have heard the term competency-based education,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if you go into a classroom, the teacher is covering chapters.
Mm-hmm.
They are assigning, for this exam, you have to go through chapter 3, 4, 5.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't know if the textbook is written in such a way that the competencies map well with the chapters.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if the lesson plans the teacher submits are mapped with competencies required.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if a student goes from, say, class 8 to class 9,
Mm-hmm.
but there are certain remedials to be given to the student. We don't know how to actually provide those remedials without being
Mm-hmm.
a one size fits all teacher.
Mm-hmm.
There are virtually no tools for that.
Yes.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Then there is also a very important aspect of, what is it that we do in the classroom when we teach a
Mm-hmm.
subject?
Mm-hmm.
And what needs to happen? I mean, what is the process by which the student learns?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so I took recourse to some work that one of the groups that I work with is doing. And I would like to show a graphic for it
Yes, yes,
and
please.
bring out this point. So
Yes.
allow me to present something. Are you able to see this?
Yes.
Okay. So, this is a very familiar word there at the bottom right, the Bloom's taxonomy.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone in EdTech knows this. We also know the learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
Let me first draw your attention to what's on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
You see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All these verbs are the Bloom's taxonomy numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And our system actually emphasizes remembering, understanding, and applying a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, this is what the students are paying for. This is what
Mm-hmm.
they pay the fees for.
Mm-hmm.
But when the student actually begins working,
Mm-hmm.
what he or she gets paid for is
Mm-hmm.
her ability to analyze, evaluate, and create.
Mm-hmm.
So you're analyzing a set of conditions, you are evaluating whether the customer should be taking one approach versus the other or create something new based on one approach.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if we look at what goes on even in schools in this manner. There is a lot of emphasis, a lot of tools for remembering and applying it, lots of practice questions, etc. But do we score the student or do we allow the student to score him or herself based on 4, 5, 6?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if we want to get the student to, now let me draw your attention to the left side graphic,
Mm-hmm.
that a certain topic has reached the level of generalized learning, as in change the context, change the parameters, flip the problem statement, do whatever it is, but the student is still able to address the challenge or solve
Mm-hmm.
the problem because he or she has been trained in that. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
we don't. We stay focused on familiarity, memory, and minimum proficiency. We don't go
Yes.
to the stage of true comprehension and generalized learning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in the educational tools, there is practice makes one perfect,
Mm-hmm.
but variation in practice is important, and
Mm-hmm.
that dramatically improves the schools. This is what the literature shows, and you can get the reference from the URL there.
Great, great.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so what I think, this aspect of how cognition develops has to be paid attention to in all the tools we develop.
Absolutely. This is a very, very, very important point. And so now we have these new technologies in education, right? So chat gpt, AI, there is a lot of discussion about that, and you mentioned at the beginning of this interview that so there is whole AI revolution is happening everywhere, and it
Yeah.
started to seep in into the education technology. So my next few questions are about future of educational technology in India, and how there are a lot of audience for this interview. They
Mhm.
are future edtech entrepreneurs, right? So they are thinking about this, what kind of product services that they should be working on, and so on. So what would be your top three contributors in the edtech space that have potential to transform teaching and learning, the way you are thinking about it, right? The way students can
Yeah.
actually analyze, evaluate, and create
Yes.
the top three things in Bloom's taxonomy.
Yeah. So, what I would say is that, an EdTech entrepreneur is first an entrepreneur and then an EdTech entrepreneur, right? So the basics that any entrepreneur needs to keep in mind have to be kept in mind by the EdTech entrepreneur too. And that's a big point. I'm not saying it in a flippant way, but it is really important. So translating that to, what one should really keep in mind is you are going to apply your learning, your creativity, your innovation to the field of education. And you have to get very deep in it. Because technology is only an enabler. It really is not going to change the way cognition takes place because you produce some technology. Okay? So getting very deep in the in the domain of education is very important. Okay? This is my point number one. Point number two is, we are all creating some product to solve a problem. But the biggest gotcha for most entrepreneurs is solving a perceived problem instead of solving a real problem. Okay? And there is a vast difference between a perceived problem and a real problem. For example, one might really get the actual problem on the ground between, say, a teacher and a student, or technology enabling a classroom, etc. But that is only one dimension of the problem. There are many dimensions, such as vested interests of the buyer, the sources of funding and the conditions that get applied to the funding to buy your product, or the time and place at which it can be applied. So an EdTech entrepreneur has to look at the problem not only in the domain of education, but also in the domain of being in the business of solving a problem which is going to yield commercial benefit in the end. Okay? This is the second point. The third point is, tell yourself every day, every time, and tell everyone you work with all the time that it is always going to take more time, more money, and more teamwork to actually get successful. This may sound like a cliche, but when you actually get down to it, these three become the most critical points to keep in mind for someone who's going to be successful versus fail.
Yes, that's all those three are extremely great insights for us to be to think about creating products and services related to in general and specifically about speaking of educational technologies and the three things that you talked about related to Bloom's taxonomy, right? So what I'm wondering is, so far the emphasis has been on remembering and at the most applying, and that's what happens when we talk about marks, when we talk about assessments, when we talk about these entrances, admissions, etc. And now most of the edutech companies in India are geared towards providing solutions for that. Do you think there is a possibility of that changing? Because there was this discussion, right? Now with Google and etc. search engines, you don't have to remember things. You can search and you can do things. But still, in last 10-15 years, our assessment systems have stayed the same. There have been significant changes in other parts of the world. So in the US and the courses that I'm teaching, the grading is de-emphasized. Several college courses don't give student grades, but they and the focus is on transferring that agency for students to perform, create something in the real world. So do you see things like that happening in Indian context?
I mean, they will have to happen. There is no alternative because these are certainly market forces. So, one of the things to be kept in mind here is even though you have calculators, even though you have, very sophisticated apps, if you take compound interest, right? And if you're investing money, deciding where to invest, unless you have, as an individual, have a feel for numbers, you will never be able to really do a good job. So there is, of course, technology that will make you efficient down the road. But you have to acquire the skill the way you did even before technology was there. Right? So this is an important part. I think that will not change. We are talking about what will change, but this will not change. Okay. So then coming to what will change is, like you said, the content, the nature of content, the way you assess, that will definitely change. And I see that there will be time when the learner will be presented with so many different contexts for the same problem, same skill, or the same piece of knowledge, that his ability to apply it in various different times, areas, problem statements will improve. So it is grasping of that context and then being able to make the right judgments to, set the right parameters. So the assessments will change in that direction. So they will go more towards analyze, evaluate, and create side because the lower three have been automated. Okay. But the way we actually run the classrooms or do the assessments, they are in early stages. So that, to me, is an opportunity for EdTech entrepreneurs today to bring that in.
Great. That is indeed very important. So we have a few questions from audience, and so I would like to ask first question by C.R. Patil, and the question is while learning hybrid learning techniques, I felt it will become a routine for us immediately. However, now we are rarely using these techniques. So how teachers should work to improve use of techniques? So basically this is about use innovative technologies and ideas in classrooms, right?
Yeah. So, one of the things that we have to recognize is that teachers actually are really interested in becoming better teachers. Okay? But just like we expect the student to have the agency to learn, we have to give the agency to become a better teacher to the teacher.
Yes.
And so, therefore, one has to provide the support, one has to give the basic skills, and then let them do the job in the classroom. Okay? And they will find ways of doing this. You also enable teachers to collaborate amongst each other. But today, in a lot of cases, teachers are discouraged from collaborating with each other. So some of these, ecosystem maladies need to be fixed for us to actually let the teachers be very creative and adopt technology the right way in the classroom. That's my view. But today they are constrained from all sides and measured on a metric which they have no control on.
Great. That's a great insight. Improving teachers' agency and supporting teachers' collaborations can help adapting these techniques into classroom settings. The second question is from Setu Maheshwari. The question reads, Sir, according to you, what can be the biggest source of motivation for teachers to work well?
So, in my view, we have to consider teachers as a professional. And a lot of people who have power over the teachers do not think so. Now, if you go to a teacher and tell her what do you really want to do. And this we found out through the survey and one-to-one interviews that we did. Number one, she wants to give her students a very engaging experience in the classroom. That's number one. Number two, she wants to collaborate with other teachers. Okay. And number three, she needs support to make the mundane work she has to do become more and more efficient. These are our three needs that we found out. Today, if we even tell the teacher that we really value you and not let the student, the parent, the admin, and the principal beat up on her, you will find them to be very motivated. I'm not saying it is like that everywhere, but you will hear cases of a private school not wanting their teachers to get trained because they are afraid she will leave and go for a better pay. It's not really the case.
Now, this is a very important point. All these three things that you mentioned and that you have learned through survey of teachers, and these are sources of motivation for teachers to work well, right? They want their students to get more engaging experience, and that's true for several teachers. And that has been my experience of working with teachers in India and in the US as well. In
Yes.
the bigger system, teachers are generally exploited to do so many election duties, to so many other things that take away their time to engage with students in meaningful
Correct.
ways. And I think the systems need to change to support teachers better.
Yes.
So Vaishnavi Ramesh is asking, learners have access to tremendous amount of resources today compared to many years ago. How should curriculum, pedagogy, and assessments be modified today in order to accommodate today's needs?
Yes, this is a very important question. We are all swimming in the ocean of content, and we don't know what to consume, when to consume it, with what context the content was created. So I think I would go back in the early years to really being very driven by competency-based education, say up to say, class 6 or 7. Really focus on the basics. They don't have to consume too much content. They don't have to see too many videos. They need somebody in the classroom who's only going to tell them, look, you get this, you do it the right way, and just, be happy, be a happy kid. Develop interest in studying. One big thing to be done is do it in the language they prefer. Don't impose a language on them because it is highly damaging to spoil the relationship between the parent and the child because the parent doesn't know English and the child is told in the class that you need to do this in English.
Yes, yes.
And the teacher is actually learning by heart the sentences she needs to use in the classroom. And when there is a different sentence to be used, she flips to her native language. This is a very bad phenomenon going on in all our classrooms. That has to be arrested because very early on you make the child not like spending time learning, and so that has to be fixed. After that, once you've taken care of the interest in the child, again, not creating artificial competitive pressures will do it, because children blossom in different ways. Just allowing them to do that will go a long way. You don't really have to do too much with content. They will find the content that interests them and learn from it.
Yes, both these are extremely important points. And so language. I grew up speaking in Marathi and grew up in Satara, and now I see when I work in the US, multilingual, bilingual education, Spanish, English. It's given a lot of importance, and we have that tradition. We had that tradition in India. We each one of us at least speaks at least 2 or 3 languages. We are already
Yes.
bilingual, multilingual, and I think privileging English over other language is a big problem. Uh, uh, Being able to think with multiple languages is an important skill, and being able to communicate and have relations and parental relations, language at home and learning from people, parents, grandparents at home is also an important thing. So if we create these language barriers, that's a very, very, very important point you bring up,
Yes.
Sridhar. Harshada has another question which is related to the second point that you talked in your previous answer, which is about students building expertise for real life, their work life. How can technology help students in doing that, basically becoming productive when he or she graduates?
Yeah. So I think at a different stage in life, if you talk about college, right, and then you talk about post college, the way technology can help the student will vary slightly. For example, in college, they may need to write a paper or give a presentation. For that, they need to do a lot of research. And they have all the tools and more today to do that. At work life, the situation is slightly different. It is not the tools that come in the way, it is the way the organization is run and what is considered to be a ticket to progress, that is more important. To some extent, that is important even in high school and in colleges. But I think I would come back to this point. It's the agency to learn that is more important than technology. All the
Yes.
technology and more is already there.
Great. We have time to take one more question, and there is a question by Vaishnavi Ramesh. She wants to want to know more about aspect of curriculum. What aspects become obsolete and what become more necessary?
Yes. Uh, I would once again go back to, at what stage of learning you are in, whether you're in primary, middle school, high school, or college. Uh, in my view, nothing ever gets outdated. We're talking about knowledge. It rarely gets outdated. Either more is built on top, but the fundamental principles actually never go away. The challenge that we have is that, as newer and newer topics come up and more content gets created, the fundas get buried deep. So, to give you an example, in computer science, I don't think any graduate in computer science today understands how a compiler works because it's become irrelevant today. I think they have even got rid of the compiler's course. I don't know what it is in the other areas of technology. Maybe there are CAD tools that help you design, uh, a floor plan so easily that you're only looking at the design aspects of it and not the structural aspects of it. So my view is you need a mentor who tells you what is the basic knowledge that you need to have and what is fluff. And that's actually everybody's blessing in life. Students have to be taught how to look for good mentors, and then at each stage, and then they will take care of it.
That's a very, very important point, and I think you have been bringing this up again. This agency of finding a mentor, right? So uh, helping students develop that agency of learning, finding a mentor, developing their own career trajectories, etc., and giving teachers agency to be able to do that in their classrooms. Both these are extremely important things. Thank you so much, Sridhar, for sharing all these insights. This has been a fantastic discussion, and I think a lot of us in the audience have learned how, when we design new technological tools and for education, how we should be thinking deeply about these top three things in Bloom's taxonomy and shifting that agency for students to do things that they would get paid for in future.
Yes. So, in one line, what I would say, Sugat, is that if you want to be an educational entrepreneur, think like an entrepreneur. consider education as your domain.
Mm-hmm.
You can be idealistic, but business cannot be idealistic. So just keep that in mind. Eventually, when you start making money, you can apply your idealism and make more money.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, Sridhar and Sugat, for a very engaging discussion. I had two takeaways from the entire discussion, right? One was I know in this age of technology solutions at scale, we must remember that technology is an enabler. And so solutions should give the agency back to the teacher since they are the ones who are directly influencing the student at a personal level. That was a big takeaway for me. And the second one was that, entrepreneurs need to get deep into education and not just focus on the technology. So I think these are
Yes.
two major takeaways from this discussion. Thank you very much for being a part of it. And let me just put back the uh, closing slide. Yeah. So to close, this was the interview by Dr. Sugat Dabolkar of Dr. Shridhar Shukla. This is the first in the series of multiple interviews that will happen as part of the EdTech Society activities. So just a quick plug for the next upcoming activity. It is a masterclass. So many of you may be familiar that a masterclass is one person doing a session on a particular technology or on a particular process. So the next masterclass is by Dr. Anveshna Srivastava, who is a visiting assistant professor at IIT Kanpur, on the topic of mastering the tech trek, understanding learning processes. So look forward to see you there.
Great. Thank you so much,